Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from our Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with our news, checking out our headlines. Venezuelan government informed that the European Union ambassador must leave the country within 72 hours after sanctions were issued on Venezuelan officials. The world will have to face a new normal of living with the virus in coming months, warned on Monday World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom. Exit polls from presidential elections in Poland show that incumbent President Andrzej Duda won a majority of votes. We begin with our news. You stay with us. We begin with our news. The Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro condemned the European Union resolution that imposed new sanctions against the country.
The European Union today issued a resolution where the supremacist European Union applies new sanctions to those Venezuelans who, as part of our state's institutions, defend the Constitution, and sanctions the Board of Directors of the Opposition National Assembly because that Board of Directors has refused to follow the orders of the European Union Embassy in Caracas.
President Maduro also announced the expulsion of the European Union ambassador to Venezuela in response to these new sanctions.
Enough is enough. That's why I have decided to give the ambassador of the European Union in Caracas 72 hours to leave our country. And I demand respect from the European Union. Enough European colonialism against Venezuela. Stop the persecution against Venezuela.
This was during the awarding of the 2020 Simón Bolívar National Journalism Prize in Venezuela, where President Nicolás Maduro announced that his government will take diplomatic actions following revelations regarding the use of the Spanish embassy in Caracas to plan the terrorist incursion on May 3rd with the complicity of the Spanish ambassador.
Venezuela reserves the right to take diplomatic actions against the ambassador of Spain for his participation in the armed incursion in Macoto and his complicity with the criminal acts reported in the Wall Street Journal by Mr. Leopoldo López. More information will be provided in the coming hours.
Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez reported the latest figures of COVID-19 infections in the country, 91 community infections and 142 international cases.
There are 142 cases, 140 from abroad, and 2 of contact with international travelers at a social care post in the state of Táchira. 138 of these cases came from Colombia.
During this Monday's 20th Political Council and 10th Economical Council of the ALBA TCP, Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez stressed the importance of maintaining union and cooperation among ALBA member nations in the face of unilateral actions of the United States.
Even during the pandemic, the policy of interference and interventionism, of domination of U.S. imperialism against our continent, based on the Monroe Doctrine, in the face of that, ALBA countries have strengthened our convictions, the defense of our sovereignty, of our people, and the cooperation aimed at ensuring economic and social development.
Meanwhile, the Venezuelan oil minister Tarek El Aissami outlined the path to be followed in order to achieve sustainable regional economy during the ALBA meeting.
All the ideas that we have gathered in the past month, in the past weeks of hard work, to move forward towards the new system of protection, of production. We have to identify the potentialities of every country in order to achieve our regional economic integration, where we give priority to complementarity, each country producing what would bring them higher benefits, exchanging goods and services with other alternative compensation mechanisms to the Western dominant bank, which badly impacts the economies of our countries. We also have to build and develop the institutional structures. Like I said, Petrocaribe, ALBA Bank, in short and mid-term. We have to develop incentives, especially for the productive economy, And we have to be more agile, flexible, and understand the historic moment that our nations are facing, and make way to bilateral cooperation under these instruments that will surely be an example for the rest of the world.
And meanwhile, the Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza from Venezuela talked about the creation of Petrocaribe 15 years ago and its support to the Caribbean region despite U.S. sanctions to Venezuela.
Because today is 15 years of the creation of this initiative. Petrocaribe, let's recall our commander, Hugo Chavez, in the year 2005. In the spirit of ALBA that had just been born in 2004, it was already visible, an initiative that came with all of the support from the countries of the alliance. And Petrocaribe has had a pivotal role in it. If we recall the crisis of the capitalist system in 2008, 2009, thanks to Petrocaribe, along with its supplying capacity, its long-term potential, its flexibility, along with their own funds, and the way that they redistributed their income in the social sectors, we were able to see an initiative that was able to give a support to the most complicated and weak economies of our area. This in the hardest years of that crisis. And Petrocaribe has continued to work regardless of all of the restrictions and sanctions against the Republic of Venezuela, regardless of the siege that we have endured. Petrocaribe is not only alive, but it's also going to have a superior level of coordination as of this meeting.
Meanwhile, also in the Caribbean, Governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vázquez, issued a decree establishing the details of the extension of the curfew on the island until July 22nd. The decree establishes that the curfew will return from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. It also highlights the importance of maintaining the measures recommended by the Medical Task Force and Health Secretary. Although Puerto Rico has reported over 7,000 COVID-19 cases and 153 deaths, collective transport services will resume on Wednesday, respecting the regulations established by the Metropolitan Bus and Urban Train Authority. In Colombia, various social organizations took to the streets as part of the so-called dignity protest against human rights violations in the country, including the systematic murder of social leaders. Campesinos, along with indigenous and Afro-descendant organizations, marched along the highways of the department of Cauca and Popoyan. The demonstrators demanded social equality and respect for their rights. The students also joined a march that is heading for the city of Bogotá.
And joining this march, these students, to protest against the ongoing murders and the rampant violence across Colombia. I invite all of Colombians to raise their voice and to join us so we can stop these deaths. We are not only working due to state abandonment during the pandemic, but they are also killing our people every day, our leaders.
And communities of Afro-Uruguayans demonstrated against racism. Protesters took to the street of the capital Montevideo with drums and played the traditional African-derived candombe rhythm. They denounced racism against them and the recent killing of George Floyd by police in the United States. Women and members of the LGBT community also joined the protest. The community held up Black Lives Matter signs and demanded justice for Black people killed in Uruguay and abroad.
There is no doubt that we of African descent have the drums ingrained as something very much of our own, but today they are a pillar of a popular culture, so we found that it was the best way to give an expression to this moment.
It's a social manifestation, and not only in the United States, but everyone should know that in Uruguay there are also people of African descent, and that there are also racial problems that are not visualized.
Time for a first break. Remember, follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account at Laura Peters. We'll be right back. We are back with our news. According to the World Health Organization, the world will have to face a new normal way of living with the coronavirus in the coming months as the disease continues to spread.
The critical question that all countries will face in the coming months is how to live with this virus. That is the new normal. We all want this to be over. We all want to get on with our lives. But the hard reality is this is not even close to being over. Although many countries have made some progress globally, the pandemic is actually speeding up.
Senegalese President Macky Sall has announced the lifting of the curfew and a state of emergency, which have been in place since March 23rd.
Just as we can't let the virus take our lives and our health, we can't let it take over the life and health of our economy either. Therefore, my dear compatriots, taking into account this twofold vital necessity, I have decided to lift the state of emergency and the corresponding curfew as of tomorrow, 30 June 2020 at 11 p.m. Airspace borders will reopen from the 15th of July, and international flights will thus resume under a defined health protocol. Land and sea borders will remain closed until further notice.
Schools have reopened in Tanzania after 3 months of closure due to the coronavirus. The Tanzanian government has ordered the rest of the schools to open in the second phase after allowing only universities to open in the first phase at the beginning of June. Safety measures including social distancing, washing of hands and wearing of masks still remain compulsory in school premises. The country has recorded 509 cases and 21 people have died from the virus.
I'm so happy to come back again to school because we have lost a lot of time at home doing nothing.
We still want to proceed with education because when we have staying at home, there is many things we have lost to learn. And if we are coming back to school, we can fill that gaps of what we have to learn.
Zimbabwe has suspended the stock trading and mobile money transfer system to protect its currency. The country's Information Ministry Permanent Secretary Nick Mgauna said on Sunday that mobile money transfer platforms were causing a gap between the market exchange rate for the Zimbabwean dollar and the official exchange rate. The official further added that the mobile-based fund system were conspiring with the help of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to facilitate illicit activities that are sabotaging the economy.
In Zimbabwe, and maybe one other country only, is where you will find somebody opening an account through a phone company, and it becomes an account for transferring money, for transacting with. So, under normal circumstances, the Reserve Bank monitors the movement of money between accounts and so forth. But mobile phone companies are under court trust. They are not with the Reserve Bank. And in this particular case, investigations have discovered that there are transactions that have nothing to do with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe.
Libya's tribes made a call on Monday for an end to crippling blockade of the country's oil production industry. Libya's National Oil Corporation raised their voice to condemn the over $6 billion in lost revenue since January and to demand for oil benefits to have a fair distribution among all Libyans. So far, local and international efforts have allied to persuade the Libyan Tribal Council to reopen the fields, as oil has long been a key factor in the civil war.
Anyone who is far from this place hears that Libya has oil, but we, as residents of the city of Wahat area, Halu, Auhila, Jikara, Tatsirbu and Kufra, the oil is in front of us and we see with our own eyes, but we do not benefit from it. Rather, it causes us air pollution because of the smoke that is transmitted to us by the winds, and we just find ourselves forced to inhale this smell. While billions are spent there in Tripoli, It is spent between embassies and between foreign bank credits.
Like this, we go for another short break. Just stay tuned with us. We'll be right back. We are back with our news. Exit polls from Sunday's presidential elections in Poland show that incumbent President Andrzej Duda won a majority of votes. Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski stands in second place with around 63% of over 30 million eligible voters headed to polling stations on Sunday, with 11 candidates in the running for the presidency. According to Polish constitution, the candidate who secures over 50% of the vote will be declared the winner. However, if no candidate achieves this threshold, those in the first two positions will go to a runoff vote on July 12th. Official results are expected between Tuesday and Wednesday. And the president of Kosovo vowed to resign if criminal charges over his role in the 1990s war are proved true by the International Criminal Court.
I assure you I will not face justice from this office. If the accusation is confirmed, I will immediately resign as your president and face the accusations.
In Russia, the government has vehemently denied allegations made by the New York Times of the Kremlin's alleged relationship with Taliban groups in Afghanistan. From Moscow, our correspondent Lisandra Andres has the details for us. Welcome, Lisandra.
A
Kremlin spokesman has called these allegations lies after the New York Times claimed there is a relationship between Russia and the Taliban groups in Afghanistan. Last week, the newspaper quoted anonymous U.S. intelligence agencies saying that Russian military intelligence had offered reward to Taliban-related soldiers for carrying out attacks against U.S. soldiers. But this source did not provide any kind of evidence. Following the publication of this article, the Russian embassy in the United States announced that threats has been issued against its diplomats. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also called these claims made by the publication false, and the White House also criticized this article, pointed out that its own intelligence services have not reported any of this to President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump also said that this publication was commissioned by certain interests and that no report had reached him or the vice president about it. Finally, the U.S. Foreign Ministry has said that the publication of this article and the ongoing misinformation campaigns against Russia are evidence of the differences between U.S. political parties.
Thank you, Lisandra. Moving on to other topics, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced further funding for what he called the ecological conversion of the French economy. The announcement came during a climate convention meeting at the presidential palace.
The state will take on its full share. That is why, as part of the recovery plan that we are preparing, an additional 15 billion euros over 2 years will be injected into the ecological conversion of our economy. We are going to set up a fund for the ecological transformation of our economy in the recovery plan.
In the United States, the state of California state recorded a new spike in COVID-19 cases this Monday, rising their total to over 100,000 as the pandemic continues to spread unabated in the country. Los Angeles and neighboring counties have been hardly hit despite strict restrictions imposed on bars and other gathering places. Los Angeles Director of Public Health Barbara Ferrer announced that the alarming numbers required the government to take immediate actions. And at least 30 people have died in a shipwreck in Bangladesh in capital Dhaka. Several others who were on board the ferry were still missing, and rescue work is still underway on the scene of the accident. The ferry capsized following a collision with another vessel. The boat was carrying more than 50 people. And thousands of people have fled their homes in northwest Myanmar as fighting between the army and insurgents intensifies. United Nations had called for civilians to evacuate the conflict-wrecked area on Sunday to save lives from worsening fighting. The Myanmar military has been battling to flush out the Arakan army, a group of fighters seeking autonomy for ethnic Baktine Buddhists in Rakhine and Shin states since January last year.
They said they are going to do clearance operations, to shoot from planes above, to shoot from boats, and to shoot on the streets. People didn't dare to say in the village, so people from around Kiauk Tan village in northern Rathdowne fled here.
Like this, we come to the end of News Brief. Of course, you can find this and more news on our website, closerenglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and find so much more material that we produce especially for you. With this invitation, we come to the end. So thank you for watching. Until next time.